Hello and welcome to episode 98 of my podcast all about knitting and crochet in my yarn shop here in Wiesbaden, Germany. I'm Kiko and today is June 7th, 2021. Today I'm wearing the shawl Revontulli. It's a free pattern on Ravelry and I just checked this morning and it has almost 5,000 projects that have been worked from this pattern. And I think it's a really nice and it's a fairly simple pattern that shows off self-striping yarn very nicely. You do these increases and decreases so that you get these chevrons, I think is the word, and then the edge of the shawl gets these nice like triangles. Yeah, and I used lang yarns, Yael Magic Degradé. I don't know if the yarn's still around. I knitted this in 2014 and I can't remember how much before that I bought the yarn. But I really like these rainbowy colors and the project's called Regenbogen Revontuli and I really like it. And even though I like this a lot, I don't really wear it all that often. I'm not quite sure why. I often feel that the colors don't quite match what I'm wearing, and even with this dress it's not a perfect match, but I thought there's enough of the yellow, orange, green in the shawl so I can wear it with this dress, and I just love it and I wish I would wear it more. Maybe I will try and wear it more in the future. And the dress I'm wearing is of course the Promise dress by Heather from HG Designs Crochet. It's so hard to say and to pronounce. Anyway, she published the pattern last year and I was one of the test crocheters to test this pattern and I really enjoyed crocheting the dress. It's made of these simple granny squares. I think Heather was using lots and lots of colors and sort of kind of like a stash buster project, but I went with 6 different colors that I picked and then used black as the background color, and this is what the complete dress looks like. And as you can see, I crocheted the bottom 3 lines. I just crocheted one color, so down here you can tell there's 2 different greens, 2 different reds and 3 different yellows that I chose for this dress. And then the middle part I make granny squares with 2 colors, so there's a contrasting color in the first round of the granny square, and then I crochet 2 rounds the same color just so that I didn't have all that many ends to weave in. And then the top part I crocheted the 3 color version where I changed color every round. And then for the sleeves, I mirrored the whole thing just with 1 row. So it's 1 row, 1 color, and then 1 row, 2 color, and then the 3 color squares. And yeah, I really like it. It's like, if it's summer, if it's warm, I can wear it with just a top underneath. Or I have a very thin like under dress that I can wear underneath, but today it's not that warm, so I'm wearing a long sleeve shirt and I'm wearing a pair of leggings, and yeah, I really like the fact that I can wear it in different weather conditions. And I really like the bright colors, so that's a perfect dress to wear on a dreary day like today. I crocheted it with a pure cotton. I used the Catania by Schachenmeier. This is a DK weight pure cotton. Has a lot of, that's the yarn that's in that shelf behind me. There are lots and lots of colors that one can choose. I was thinking of doing the dress with all the colors, but then the pattern, we testers got the pattern while I was away on holiday last year. And so I went to a shop there and got these 6 colors. I didn't want to buy all the colors while I was traveling, but I'm really happy with how it turned out, and maybe I'll do a very colorful or maybe like a leftover yarns kind of dress in the future. We'll see. I'm still thinking of making one out of wool instead of cotton, so maybe with some DK weight sock yarn. That might be an idea. Yeah, so that's what I'm wearing today. Then on to finished objects. I have 2 finished objects today, and I have 1 new cast on, but I have 2 new projects on Ravelry. I had cast on the other one before, but it hadn't really turned into a project yet. Explain about that in a bit. So the first pair of socks that I finished are the Sockmadness socks that I had started last week. These are the round 5 socks, and the pattern is called Sweet Rose by Atelier Midsummer's Eve. And as you can see, or I don't know if you've seen others before, but if you have, then you know that there are supposed to be flowers in each of these fields, and I didn't do that. And that already tells you that I did not go on to the next round, which is not a big problem. I don't mind. But the thing is, I finished knitting the second sock. When was that? I think it was on Tuesday. And then I started embroidering these flowers. And I had finished 5 of them. This was the first sock that I embroidered. So I did those 2 and those 3. And then I checked on Ravelry to see if there was still a spot available on my team, and they were all gone. When I started embroidering, there were still 3 spots available. And during the time it took me to embroider those 5 roses, they had all gone. So I decided I wouldn't do them all because they take a long time for me. And my sister is going to get these socks. She liked the color. She wasn't too keen on the roses, but she doesn't mind them either, so that's okay. But she didn't want me to put them all on, I think mainly to save me work, but also because she just wasn't too keen on having them all. But I wasn't going to undo the one that I had on the back of the sock here, but I had those 4 on the front part of the sock, so I decided to do the same on the second sock, and I did these 2, and I did this 1, and this is just supposed to be a bud. So because my sister kept trying to get me to do less work, but I just didn't want to have 1 sock with 5 of those and then 1 without. So I said, I have to at least do the 4. And then she said, maybe you could do without the beads. And I said, they're the most beautiful part of it. So I ended up doing 1 with just these beads. And it's the first time I did this kind of embroidery. I think it's called a bullion stitch. So that was new, but it's not too difficult, and I really like the way the flowers came out. The leaves, that's something I had seen before. I don't think I'd ever done it before. So yeah, I learned quite a few new things with these socks. And yeah, and I'm really happy. And I'm also happy that I finished them, even though I didn't go on to the next round. I sent the email that I had finished the socks and that I wasn't going to get a spot, so I'm a cheerleader. And as a cheerleader, you don't have to finish everything exactly as written. So even though I didn't embroider all the flowers, I still got the bonus pattern, which I thought was really nice and very generous. And I plan on knitting that pattern too as soon as possible. Yeah, so these are the Sweet Roses socks, the Sockmadness round 5 socks, and they are finished, and my sister is looking forward to receiving them. I'm getting a little warm. So yeah, and the next pair of socks are for my sister as well. And it's these socks. The pattern is the Paris socks by Mina Philipp from Knitting Expat Designs. And I used Opal. Oh, I forgot to mention that. This is Wolldackel. This is a German hand dyer. It's a beautiful yarn. And they're called Wolldackel. Not quite sure whether they ship internationally, but I'm sure you can check them out. I have the website linked underneath the video. And this is Opal subscription yarn, Opal Abo. and it was part of the Musterschlacht, the pattern battle that happens every time we get one of those packages, and this color was chosen for the pattern battle, and my sister really liked the color, and she also liked the pattern, so I said she can have those socks as well. Yeah, so she'll be receiving several pairs of socks in the future. What else can I say? I just knit the yarn the way it came, so the colors are completely opposite. I really like that. My sister likes it, so that's good. I changed the pattern insofar as the pattern has all the flowers in one line and then one line of no flowers, and I mix it up so that the flowers come in different spots. I knit a fish lips kiss heel and continued the pattern into the first half of the heel. It's the first time I did something like that, but I really like the effect. Yeah, and I just did this, my favorite star toe. It's just my favorite toe that I tend to always do. Yeah, and I'm really happy I got them done. So these are the finished socks. Then on to works in progress, and I'll, as usual, start with my socks in progress. And the next sock that I'm showing you is this, and that's my Yael socks, and that was a pattern that I sort of came up with 3 years ago, and it's so much like the Paris socks that I decided I'm not going to write down the pattern, but I can finally finish them. I'd finished one sock 3 years ago, and now I am knitting the second one. Last week I'd started with the heel flap. I didn't do a lot of work on them. All I did is finish the heel flap. I turned the heel, I think is what you say. So I finished this bit, and I picked up the stitches, and I just knit a few rounds after picking up the stitches. So I've established the decreases that happen here for the gusset, and yeah, now I need to finish the foot, and then this is going to be my sock, which I can wear with this dress. And then, but we have like partner look socks. The colors don't match at all, but it'll be the same pattern, and that's fun to know. This is Filda sock yarn, so it's not a sock yarn I use a lot, but yeah, it's a really nice color, and yeah, so more of that pattern. Then I continued knitting a little bit on the blue stockings, the Elizabeth Montague socks by Kate Davies. The next pattern in that ebook collection was published some point last week, and that's a nice pattern too, but I haven't cast it on yet. By the way, Mina Phillips' ebook Around the World in 8 Socks, that the Paris socks are part of, she has already released the first was London socks. I made those. Then this is the Paris socks, and then the next one were the Rome socks, and now she released the Dubai socks. So I like both the patterns. I might skip the Rome socks and go straight to the Dubai socks because I really like that pattern, and yeah, but I haven't really decided yet. Just a thought. So the Elizabeth Montague socks, the blue stockings, I continued knitting this beautiful pattern. I measured the rows, and I think that after I finish this bit of the pattern, I can probably start the increases for the heel, but I'll try them on a measure again once I've done those few rounds that are still missing, and then I'm looking forward to seeing what kind of heel construction that is. I think it's different from what I've knit before, but I'm not too sure, so I'll find out once I start doing that. So these are the Elizabeth Montague socks using opal yarn, single color opal yarn. Yeah, and then I have one more pair of socks, or one more sock on the needle, and I talked about that last video, that when I received the pattern for the Sockmadness round 5, the Sweet Rose pattern, I started the first sock in a different yarn. And what I did is I started with this Black Dragon yarn by Opal. I like the green color. I thought it'd be really nice to have like red, orange and yellow roses on this green yarn. But I decided the pattern was just not visible enough for a competition sock. So this is what this looks like. And I put it aside and I started knitting with this yarn. And as you can see, the pattern is a lot more visible with this kind of yarn. But I don't really like to rip out things and to undo things. So I thought I will still finish it. I'll just not knit it as part of the competition. So it doesn't really matter whether or not you can see the pattern. And if you look closely, you can still see there's some kind of pattern going on. And yeah, I finished knitting the foot. I just knit the same a number of rows that I did with the competition socks. I did the same heel. It's the Sweet Tomato heel by Kat Bordy that the designer used. But now I'm going to change things a little bit. So I've just finished the heel and I've added a few rounds of pattern. But for this pair of socks, I'm not going to knit the whole leg the way it's written in the pattern. But what I'm planning to do, I hope it works out. So I want to do is I want to do 2 repeats of this pattern that was knit on the top of the foot. I want to do 2 repeats of that and then start this pattern and only knit it once. And then I might do another repeat of this pattern, but I'm not sure whether that's going to work out. Maybe I will go straight into the ribbing, and then I'll do the ribbing complete with this leaf motif. But then what it means is I will have only 4 of those like little frames, and I will embroider 4 roses on each of these socks. And the plan for these socks, because they are green, I am going to donate them to the organization for women with ovarian cancer, and they ask for green socks, so they can give green socks to every woman who needs chemotherapy. And so they always ask for green socks to be donated, and I've planned to donate these socks, which are going to be really green with just a few orange, red and yellow roses, and I will donate them to this organization. And I really enjoy this yarn. So the Black Dragon yarn it's a fairly new yarn by Opal, and it has this this black yarn that sort of gets thinner and thicker, and it's mixed in with this green that changes through different hues of green. So I really like the effect that you get while knitting it. And even though it doesn't show the pattern as clearly as other yarns do, I don't mind, and I really enjoy knitting these. Yeah, so that's all the socks I'm working at the moment. Yeah, that brings me to the clothes I'm knitting at the moment. And I continue knitting on the Glacier tunic by Jorge Locatelli that I want to knit as a dress. And I'm using 5 different colors by Opal. And I use the first color to do the yoke. And then I faded in the second color at the end of the yoke. And in sleeve number 1, this is color number 2. This is from the Ice Cream series. And this is another subscription yarn in the first sleeve. And then I did some rounds of sort of fading one color into the other here. And I did the same on the second sleeve, but I haven't finished it yet. So the upper part is quite similar with the stripes, with the ice cream stripes, but the part where I changed from color 2 to color 3, it was quite invisible in this sleeve, but with this sleeve I get really strong contrasting stripes because the number 3 color was in this dark bit and the ice cream color is more light. But I really like those stripes, and I like the way the sleeves are different this way, and you can tell where I change from one color to the other. I still think it looks nice, it looks harmonious, and now I'm just knitting with color 3, and just need to finish the sleeves. Not a lot to go, a few more decreases, and then I do several decreases before the ribbing. And then looking forward to knitting the same colors in the front and back, and then hopefully not too long until I can join in colors 4 and 5. Yeah, so that's the Glacier tunic by Jorge Locatelli. And the other piece of clothing that I like to show now is the invested vest that I'm crocheting after another Heather crochet designs. But I didn't do any crochet last week. It wasn't intentional. It's just this morning that I realized that I didn't do any of the crochet projects. So I didn't do anything on the invested vest. I didn't crochet anything on the dinosaur blanket. I'm really disappointed with myself for that. And I did not knit or crochet any dishcloths. So that'll be top of the list for this week. But last week I didn't get to do that. But I picked up something that I hadn't been working on for quite some time. And that's the Snowflake skirt that I'm knitting. I knit a pullover out of this color. This is another Opal subscription yarn. And when I unpacked this color in my unboxing video, I was so delighted with this color that several people offered to give me their blue yarn in exchange for something else. I think 1 or 2 people just gave their yarn to me, which was so generous and nice. And I decided to do a pullover with a snowflake pattern, with a 2-color pattern. And I finished the pullover and I had so much yarn left over that I decided to do a skirt. So this is the top of that skirt. And then I decided to do another snowflake pattern on the bottom of the skirt. And I had done quite a bit of that before. And then for some reason, I just didn't get to knitting on that for weeks and weeks. And now I've picked it up again. And I think I added about 3 rounds. So it's not a lot of rounds, but there's many, many stitches of this skirt. So it really takes a long time to do the 2-color knitting with that many stitches. So I'm quite happy to have done those 3 rounds. And I'm almost at the middle of the pattern. So I'd hoped to get to the middle of it, but I'm not quite there yet. But as you can see, this bit is sort of going to be like this one. And when that's done, then I'm sort of at there's a middle round. I think there's one, I don't know if it's 1, 2 or 3 rounds that are on top of this white part of the snowflake. And then it just mirrors, and I do the same thing again in the other direction. Yeah, but I always think it's nice to get to the middle point, and then the number of rows you still need to do is smaller than the ones that you've already knit. I just like that feeling. I think Sarah Shearer from Imagine Landscapes calls this downhill knitting. I think she uses that for socks. Once you finish the heel, it's like downhill knitting. But I also feel like that with patterns like this. It just seems like such a lot of work when you start. But once you reach the halfway point, I feel like I'm going downhill. And I'm looking forward to reaching that point. Yeah, so that's the skirt. And then I have a new cast on. And the main reason, there's 2 reasons that I wanted to cast this on now. And one of them is that this is another, oops, oh dear, I lost some stitches there. Hang on, I have to pick those up. It's another Opal subscription yarn. And this is the color that was chosen to be this time's, or this box's pattern battle. And again, this is a color that I really like. And one of my friends who also has the subscription box swapped 2 of the colors that I didn't like too much for two colors that I loved. And so I have two balls of this color. So I was able to choose a project that's a bit bigger. And that brings me to the other reason I wanted to cast this on. I'm not knitting a shawl at the moment. And I think I haven't been knitting a shawl for quite some time. And I love shawl knitting. I love wearing shawls. I love knitting them. So I decided to knit a shawl out of this color because in the pattern battle, I guess 90% of the projects that are being made are socks, which is fair enough. Most people just have one ball of yarn, and it's ideal for a pair of socks. And there's so many different sock patterns out there that many people can pick different patterns. But there's always some people who do something different. They might knit a cowl or something for a baby or a hat or a pair of mittens or wrist warmers, something like that. Or even a small shawl. I've knit small shawls with just 100 grams of yarn. We can use a bit of a contrasting color unless we can use another color with the pattern battle, but this color has to be 75% of the project. So 25% of the project can be a different color, but not more than that. So you can do a bit of accent color in your project if you want to do something a little bit bigger than 100 grams. So, but anyway, so the shawl that I picked is one by Rosemary Hill out of her beautiful book, New Lace Knitting. I've already knit this pullover out of this book. And I've knit another shawl out of this book before. But anyway, I've always loved this shawl. And the pattern says you need 800 either yards or meters. So with two of these, I should have enough yarn to knit this shawl. And yeah, and I just like the way the patterns, there are different patterns in there. And I just love big triangular shawls. And without thinking about it, I was pretty sure that this is one of those shawls that start at the top in the neck, and then you start with a few stitches, and then you keep increasing, and the shawl grows. And then I looked at the pattern, and it says cast on 200 and something stitches. And I was like, ooh, what's happening here? And then I read the description of the shawl, and I read that Romy designed this shawl so that you do not have this spine in the middle of the triangle. I don't mind if a shawl has that, but I know that my sister doesn't like it, and I'm sure there are other people who don't like it. So I thought it's really interesting. I hadn't really noticed before, looking at the pattern, that you do not have this spine in the middle of the shawl. I'm not quite sure what it's like down here. Maybe I can find another picture to show that. No, it doesn't really show. So I'll have to wait and knit. There might be sort of a mini spine down there, but for the main part up here, you just have this diamond pattern that repeats. And the thing is, you cast on the stitches up here, so along this edge, but not the whole shawl, just where this pattern is, and then you knit short rows in this pattern, and then you start knitting this way once you finish the first triangle. But I'm still far away from from being there. All I have done is cast on stitches and knit the first, kind of like the first pattern repeat. It's not the first chart, and this is what it looks like so far. And I'll try and show it to you more clearly. So basically I knit one of those diamonds that this pattern consists of. So this is one of those diamonds. And the interesting thing is, because, oops, my needle is too short. I need to put in a longer cable. I'll do that as soon as I stop filming. The thing is that because of the increases and decreases, because of the way they are placed, the edge gets this beautiful wave-like appearance. And I was quite surprised when I noticed that that happening. I hope you can see that properly. It's difficult to show. maybe I can show it like that. So you get these round scalloped edge down here, which is really nice, which is going to be on the top of the shawl. And I'm knitting short rows, and that's why I have a few stitches on this needle, and that's why I keep losing these stitches, because these are the stitches that I'm not knitting at the moment, so that when I hold it like this, the triangle can happen. And I have a few stitches on this side that I'm not knitting. Yeah, so, but now I have a shawl on the needle again, really happy about that. It's, compared to other opal yarns, this isn't too colorful, so I think it should look nice in something bigger, like this shawl. But I also like the way the green color keeps showing up, so that's quite nice. Yeah, so that's the the pattern is called Town Square, out of Romy's book. Yeah, so that was that. As I said, no dinosaur blanket. Knit along number 1, nothing happened. I hope to be able to show something next week, but I did work on the other knit along, the Optic blanket. And last week I forgot to bring the 4 squares that I knit for the pillow cover that I am making. And I not only finished knitting those, I also finished the tutorial video to show how I plan to sew these pieces together. And I used a contrasting color to show how I do that. So I left the yarn in to show you today, and then I can take it out and then sew them together properly. And then, yep, I can knit the other half of the pillow cover. Yeah, so that's that. And on my blanket, I did 2 squares last week to make up for the time that I had lost. One of them is this. This is the leftover yarn from a pullover I knitted called Calibrate, the Calibrate sweater. It's a very beautiful sweater. And then I knit this square. This is leftover yarn from my kangaroo shorts by Stephen West. And I had knit this cross kind of thing. And so I've put in those 2 corner pieces. And then if I can manage it, I will finish those other 2 corners this week. And then I'll be done with this, and I can start the next 9 square. And for that, I plan on using single color DK weight opal sock yarn, and I want to use all the neon colors that I have in that yarn, and I'm really looking forward to starting that. Yeah, so that's everything I knit last week. No crochet. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I will see you in the next one. Bye!